The demolition notice was only 3 days old when Lily discovered it. She was 14 years old, an orphan, and the only home she had ever truly chosen for herself was about to disappear. Every afternoon, Lily walked through the tall wooden doors of the Bellweather Public Library. She didn't come because she had homework. She didn't come because she had nowhere else to go. She came because the library was the only place in the town where nobody looked at her like she was a problem waiting to happen. Inside those walls, she wasn't the orphan girl. She wasn't the child without parents. She wasn't the teenager who had learned far too early how to sleep without knowing who would be waiting for her in the morning. She was simply Lily, a reader, a dreamer, someone who belonged. But that morning, something was different. A white sign stood outside the library, and printed across it in bold black letters were 5 words Lily could barely believe. Property scheduled for demolition. She stared at it. Then she looked up at the library. The old stone building suddenly seemed smaller, more fragile, almost afraid. Lily ran inside. "Mrs. Harper?" The librarian looked up from behind the circulation desk. One look at Lily's face told her something was wrong. "What happened?" Lily pointed toward the window. "They're going to tear it down." Mrs. Harper didn't answer, and that silence frightened Lily more than the sign itself, because it meant the notice was real. The library was closing, and there was nothing a 14-year-old orphan could do about it, or so everyone thought, because 3 weeks later, Lily would uncover a secret hidden beneath that library for nearly a century. A secret involving a dusty ledger, a forgotten family, and a name that would change her life forever. Her own name. Lily Vale had never liked the word orphan. It sounded too final, as if the word itself had decided that a person no longer had a family. She had been raised in different foster homes for most of her childhood. Some were kind, some were not. Most simply felt temporary. Lily learned not to unpack completely. She learned not to get attached to bedrooms. She learned not to ask how long she would be staying. And most importantly, she learned not to expect people to stay. Then, 2 years earlier, she discovered the Bellweather Library. It was an enormous brick building built in 1924. Dark wooden shelves stretched toward the ceiling. Tall windows filled the reading room with golden afternoon light. There was an ancient fireplace in the center of the main hall, and every book seemed to carry the smell of dust, paper, and forgotten stories. The first time Lily entered, Mrs. Eleanor Harper was working behind the desk. "You can look around," the librarian had told her. Lily nodded. "Do I need a library card?" Mrs. Harper smiled. "You'll need one eventually." Lily looked nervous. "Do I have to pay?" "No." "Do I need an adult?" "No." Lily hesitated. "Can I stay for a while?" Mrs. Harper looked at the nearly empty library, then back at Lily. "As long as you'd like." That simple sentence changed everything, because Lily stayed. She returned the next day, and the day after that. Soon, Mrs. Harper knew exactly where to find her, usually near the history shelves, sometimes by the fireplace, and almost always carrying the same battered notebook. Lily filled it with things she wanted to remember, quotes from books, interesting facts, questions she couldn't answer, and sometimes, names. She loved names, because names were proof that someone had existed. People who had lived hundreds of years ago had left behind names in books, letters, newspapers, and photographs. Their lives had ended, but their names remained. Lily secretly wondered whether her own name would ever mean anything to anyone. She didn't know who her biological parents were. Her records were incomplete. The only thing she had from her earliest childhood was a small silver pendant. It had been given to her when she was a baby. On its back were 2 engraved letters. Evie. Lily had no idea what they meant. The announcement came on a Tuesday. A development company called Northbridge Development had purchased several properties around Bellweather Square. They planned to build a luxury apartment complex. The library occupied the most valuable piece of land, so the company wanted it gone. At the town meeting that evening, Lily sat in the back row. She listened as a sharply dressed man named Daniel Mercer stood before the council. He represented Northbridge Development, "The building is structurally outdated," he said. "The library costs the town money every year." He clicked through a presentation. Modern apartments appeared on the screen. Glass balconies, underground parking, a rooftop garden. The room murmured with approval. Then a photograph of the library appeared. Old, weathered, small. Mercer pointed toward it. "This structure is almost 100 years old. It's not practical for modern Bellweather." Lily's hand tightened around her notebook. Mrs. Harper sat beside her. Lily whispered, "They can't do that." Mrs. Harper looked toward the council. "They can try." Lily stood. Several people turned around. She walked toward the microphone. "My name is Lily Vale." Her voice trembled. "But that library is important." Someone near the front smiled awkwardly. Mercer looked amused. "How old are you?" 14. A few people exchanged glances. Mercer smiled. "Then perhaps you should let the adults handle this." Lily stared at him. "Why?" The room became quiet. Mercer raised an eyebrow. "Why what? Why should being 14 mean I don't get to care?" Nobody laughed this time. Lily continued. "People say it's just a building." She looked toward Mrs. Harper. "But it's not." Her voice cracked. "People come there when they're lonely." She swallowed. "People learn there." She looked around the room. "Some people don't have families." A pause. "And sometimes a place can become the closest thing they have to one." Silence. Then the council chair thanked Lily and asked her to sit down. Mercer leaned toward his assistant and quietly said something Lily couldn't hear, but she saw him smile. It was the kind of smile that told her he didn't consider her a threat. That mistake would cost him. The next morning, Lily started a campaign. She created a petition. She made posters. She interviewed elderly residents who remembered the library from childhood. She even started recording short videos on an old phone. Her message was simple. Save Bellweather Library. At first, hardly anyone noticed. Then something unexpected happened. People began sharing their stories. An elderly man named Walter told Lily that he had learned to read in the library when he was 8. A mother said the library had given her children a safe place to study. A retired teacher said she had met her future husband there. A young mechanic admitted that the library's free computer access had helped him apply for his first job. The stories kept coming. Lily wrote every one of them down. Within a week, she had collected hundreds of signatures. But Northbridge Development wasn't worried. Mercer simply called the campaign Sentimental Resistance. Then he delivered the news that nearly broke Lily. The town council had scheduled a final vote. The library would be demolished unless someone could prove that the building had historical or legal significance strong enough to stop the development. Lily stared at Mrs. Harper. "Historical significance?" Mrs. Harper nodded. "There may be records." "Where?" Mrs. Harper hesitated. "Old records were stored in the basement." Lily's eyes widened. "The basement?" Mrs. Harper sighed. "Most of it hasn't been touched in decades." Lily immediately grabbed a flashlight. "Then we have work to do." The basement was nothing like the library upstairs. It was dark, cold, and filled with forgotten things. Old newspapers, broken chairs, boxes of photographs, stacks of handwritten records. The air smelled like dust and damp wood. Lily turned on her flashlight. "Where do we start?" Mrs. Harper pointed toward the far wall. "Anything from before 1950. Lily smiled. "That sounds easy." It wasn't. For hours they searched. They found old membership cards, library newsletters, town maps, photographs of children sitting around the fireplace. But nothing that could legally protect the building. Then Lily discovered something strange. A locked wooden cabinet. Mrs. Harper stared at it. "I've never seen that before." There was no key. Lily crouched beside it. "What's written here?" She brushed dust away. 3 faded letters appeared. BVL. Bellweather Village Library. Mrs. Harper shook her head. "That can't be right." "Why?" "Because the library wasn't officially called that." Lily looked closer. The cabinet had a tiny brass lock. Mrs. Harper searched through an old drawer. Nothing. Then Lily remembered something. Her silver pendant. The one engraved with the letters EV. She touched it. Mrs. Harper. What? What if these initials belonged to someone? Before Mrs. Harper could answer, Lily noticed a loose floorboard beneath the cabinet. She pulled it up. Underneath was a small brass key. They stared at each other. Lily whispered, "That's impossible." Mrs. Harper slowly took the key. She inserted it into the lock. Turned. Inside the cabinet was a single object. A ledger. Not a box. Not a stack of documents. One enormous leather-bound book. Its cover was almost black with age. A faded golden emblem was stamped into the center. Lily carefully lifted it. Dust floated through the flashlight beam. Mrs. Harper looked at the first page. The handwriting was old-fashioned, elegant, and difficult to read. At the top was a date, 1924. Lily's heart began beating faster. The same year the library had been built. "This could be it," she whispered. They turned the pages. Names, donations, property records, building expenses, letters copied by hand. The founders had recorded almost everything. Then Lily noticed something. Several pages had been removed. Not torn. Removed carefully. Someone had taken them out. Mrs. Harper frowned. Why would someone remove pages from a library ledger? Lily didn't answer. She kept turning. Then she found a handwritten entry. "The Bellweather Library shall remain a place of learning, refuge, and community so long as the land remains under the stewardship of the Vale family or its lawful descendants." Lily froze. "Vale?" Mrs. Harper looked at her. "What?" "My last name." Mrs. Harper stared at the page. Neither of them spoke. Lily's fingers trembled. She turned another page. There it was. A name. Eleanor Vale. Beneath it was a signature. And underneath the signature was a note. Founder and principal benefactor. Lily touched the page. Her voice was barely audible. Eleanor Vale. Mrs. Harper looked at Lily's pendant. The initials. Evie. The room suddenly felt very small. Lily whispered, "Who was she?" Mrs. Harper shook her head. "I don't know." But the ledger wasn't finished. There were more pages, and the final page had never been read in nearly 100 years. Lily hesitated. For the first time since opening the book, she was afraid. What if the answer wasn't there? What if she had spent her entire life searching for a family that didn't exist? She turned the page. A handwritten message filled the paper. The ink had faded, but the words were still readable. "To whoever carries the Vale name after me." Lily stopped breathing. Mrs. Harper covered her mouth. Lily continued, "If this library ever faces destruction, remember that its purpose was never merely to store books. It was built so that no child would grow up believing they had nowhere to belong." Lily's eyes filled with tears. Then she saw the signature. Eleanor Vale. But below it was something else. A second handwritten line. "My descendants must protect this place, not because it belongs to them, but because it belongs to everyone." Lily stared at the words. She had spent years believing she was alone. And now an unknown woman from a century earlier seemed to be speaking directly to her. But there was still one question. Was Eleanor Vale actually her ancestor? The ledger couldn't prove that. They needed more. And that was when Mrs. Harper noticed a second envelope tucked into the back cover. It was sealed. On the front were 4 words. "For the Vale heir." The envelope was fragile. Mrs. Harper warned Lily not to open it carelessly. Together, they photographed the outside. Then Lily gently broke the seal. Inside was a letter. Written in 1924. The letter explained that Eleanor Vale had established the library using her family estate. But there was something else. Eleanor had no children. Instead, she had named her younger brother, Samuel Vale, as successor to the estate. And Samuel had a daughter, a little girl named Clara. Lily looked at the page. Clara Vale. The letter continued. Clara had eventually married. Her descendants had moved away from Bellweather, but Eleanor had left detailed instructions. The land beneath the library was never meant to be sold for private development. It had been placed under a charitable trust. The problem? The original trust documents were missing. Without them, Northbridge could argue that the property had been transferred to the town decades ago. Lily's heart sank. So this doesn't save the library? Mrs. Harper shook her head. Not yet. Then Lily noticed something written in the margin. A reference number. A legal document number. Mrs. Harper immediately recognized it. That might lead to the original deed. They searched the county archives. Nothing. They searched newspaper records. Nothing. Then they found a name. Samuel Vale. And beside it, a birth record. For Clara Vale. Then another document. A marriage record. And eventually, a birth certificate. Lily stared at the screen. Her own name appeared in the family line. Not directly. Not enough to prove everything. But enough to establish a connection. The same unusual surname. The same family line. The same initials on her pendant. And now, a missing piece. Lily's original guardianship records. Lily had never seen her earliest records. She had been told they were incomplete. But Mrs. Harper contacted a legal aid organization that helped children access historical records. Weeks of paperwork followed. Finally, Lily received a copy. Her hands shook as she opened the envelope. There was a hospital record, a birth record, and a note from the social worker who had first handled her case. The note said Lily had been found as an infant with only a small silver pendant. The initials on the pendant were recorded. Evie. But there was one more detail. A name had been written on the original intake document, then crossed out. Lily stared at it. The name was Lily Eleanor Vale. She looked at Mrs. Harper. That was my name? Mrs. Harper nodded. It appears so. Lily began crying. Not because she was sad, because for the first time, she had a piece of her beginning. Her name had not been invented by a stranger. It had belonged to her, but they still needed proof. The final breakthrough came from an elderly genealogist who had spent decades studying Bellweather history. His name was Thomas Reed. He examined the documents. Then he looked at Lily. I've seen this family before. He opened an old photograph. A woman stood outside the library in 1924. Eleanor Vale. Beside her was a younger man, Samuel. And next to Samuel, a little girl, Clara. Thomas pointed toward the family tree. Clara's descendants eventually had a daughter who disappeared from Bellweather. Lily stared at the photograph. Who? Thomas looked at her. Your grandmother's family. Silence. Lily whispered. I'm a Vale. Thomas nodded. Yes. Then he added something that Lily would never forget. You've been looking for your family. He smiled gently. It appears your family has been looking for its way back to you. The final town council meeting arrived. Northbridge Development came prepared. Daniel Mercer brought lawyers, architects, engineers, documents. He expected an easy victory. Then Lily walked into the room. She wasn't alone. Behind her were hundreds of residents. Mrs. Harper, Thomas Reed, teachers, parents, retired workers, children, people who had signed the petition. Mercer looked irritated. This is becoming unnecessarily dramatic. Lily walked toward the microphone. She placed the old ledger on the table. The room became silent. This building was founded in 1924 by Eleanor Vale. Mercer frowned. The property is legally owned by the town. Lily nodded. That's what everyone believed. She opened the ledger. But this says something different. Mercer's attorney leaned forward. Lily read the relevant passage. The land had been dedicated to public education and community use. It could not simply be sold for private development without addressing the original trust. The town attorney requested the documents. They examined them. Then the room waited. Minutes passed. Finally, the attorney spoke. There appears to be a legitimate historical trust attached to the original property. Mercer stood. What does that mean? The attorney answered carefully. It means the proposed development cannot proceed as planned until the title and trust issues are legally resolved. Lily looked at Mrs. Harper. They both understood. The demolition had been stopped. at least for now. But Lily wasn't finished. She stood again. I don't want this library saved because of me. Everyone looked at her. I want it saved because of what it has done for people. She looked around the room. Eleanor Vale wrote that this place should belong to everyone. Her voice trembled. So let's make sure it does. The crowd erupted in applause. The legal investigation lasted several months. The ledger wasn't enough by itself. Neither was Lily's surname. But when historians, attorneys, and county officials compared the old records with birth certificates, estate documents, and family records, the connection became clear. Lily was a direct descendant of Eleanor Vale's family. And more importantly, the original estate documents confirmed that the Vale family had retained specific rights connected to the library property. Lily had not magically become the owner of an entire town. She hadn't inherited a mansion filled with gold. Her inheritance was something much more meaningful. A family trust, a historic connection, and a home. The court-appointed representatives recognized Lily's family connection and established a legal trust to preserve the library. A portion of the original Vale estate, long forgotten and held through successive legal arrangements, was also recovered. Lily became the youngest beneficiary of the trust. But she wasn't interested in the money. She wanted something else. She asked for one condition. The library had to remain open, and the children's reading room had to be renovated. So it was. The old library was saved. The damaged shelves were repaired. The fireplace was restored. New computers were installed. And the basement was converted into a small history room. At the center of that room was a glass display case. Inside it sat the original ledger. Beside it was a photograph of Eleanor Vale. And underneath the photograph was a simple plaque. Eleanor Vale, founder, 1924. No child should ever believe they have nowhere to belong. 1 year later, Lily sat beside the fireplace. The library was full. Children whispered between shelves. Parents searched for books. Students studied at tables. An elderly man read the newspaper in his favorite chair. And behind the circulation desk stood Mrs. Harper. Lily smiled. Mrs. Harper walked over. You know, you're supposed to be studying. Lily laughed. I am. You've been staring at that fireplace for 10 minutes. I was thinking. Dangerous habit. Lily smiled. Then she touched the silver pendant around her neck. For years, those letters had been a mystery. Now she knew. Evie, Eleanor Vale, a woman she had never met, a woman who had died almost a century before Lily was born. And yet, that woman had left behind a message that somehow found its way to her. Lily opened her notebook, the same battered notebook she had carried for years. She wrote a new sentence. I finally know where I belong. Then she paused, crossed it out, and wrote something else. I finally know that belonging isn't something you inherit. It's something people build together. She closed the notebook. A little girl approached her. Are you Lily? Lily smiled. Yes. Is this your library? Lily looked around. At the shelves, the fireplace, the children, Mrs. Harper, the old photographs, the place that had once been the only home she knew. Then she smiled. No. The little girl looked confused. Lily pointed toward the room. It's ours. Lily had spent her childhood believing that family was something you were either born into or something you lost. But the library taught her something different. Sometimes family begins with a stranger leaving a door unlocked. Sometimes it begins with a librarian saying, you can stay for a while. Sometimes it begins with a community deciding that one child's voice matters. And sometimes, the past leaves a message for the future. A message hidden inside an old book, waiting for the right person to find it. Lily never forgot the day she first saw the demolition notice, because that was the day she thought she was about to lose her home. Instead, she found her history, she found her family, and she helped save a place that would eventually become home to thousands of other children. The Bellweather Library still stands today in our story. And on the wall beneath Eleanor Vale's photograph are the words that Lily chose herself. A library is more than a building full of books. It is a place where people who feel lost can discover that they belong. And perhaps that was Eleanor Vale's greatest inheritance. Not the estate, not the property, not the name, but the idea that a person's greatest legacy isn't what they leave behind. It's what continues because they cared. If you were Lily, would you have kept fighting to save the library after everyone told you that you were just a child? And if you discovered a century-old ledger containing your family's name, would you have opened the final page? Tell us in the comments. And if stories about courage, unexpected family, and second chances are your kind of stories, subscribe to the Hearth Fire Tales. Because sometimes, the people who feel like they have nowhere to belong are the very people who end up creating a home for everyone else.